Hello and welcome to the Cat and Parrot. Right, I really want to talk because sometimes I feel that our role as safeguarding is very reactive. And you could say that definitely with the sexual harassment. Suddenly schools are suddenly doing absolutely loads to make sure that we are ticking a box, if you like. That sounds terrible, but that's how it feels sometimes, to make sure that we are, I don't want to say covering our backs, but sometimes it feels like we're doing things that we see in the paper or we hear there's been a big issue. When actually many safeguarding people are going to sit there going, well, what about the ones that we know are definitely happening? I mean, I can give you a really good example. I'm really worried about coercive control. I'm really worried about abusive relationships where kids are being coerced into sharing something online, which you could say is sexual harassment, but they're normally in a relationship. They're normally a boyfriend, girlfriend, and yet that doesn't seem to be big in the press at the moment. And I'm slightly worried that we're being reactive at the moment. Do you think that I'm just being odd about that? Or do you think that that's...
No, absolutely. I think the nature of the beast is, unfortunately, like you're saying, there's going to be young people who, unfortunately, for their own reasons, have got their own, even as human beings, we've got a brain, we've got a heart. So sometimes in our life, we're going to be vulnerable, have good and bad days. And depending on that day, we do things and we accept things rather than reject them because our values on that day are our self-esteem. So you're absolutely right that, unfortunately, there are people who are manipulators who know how to kind of, we could say, groom, befriend, it will look like in a school, be nice, and also be quite popular, where actually you are the magnet where people want to be around. But unfortunately, when you're around that person, that's when things go out of hand, in the sense of the demands, the instructions. It's just part of the deal. It comes with the pack. Does that make sense? And I think you're absolutely right with that status of that person then thinking, well, if I challenge this, that means I can't be around you anymore. So I almost have to accept this behavior to be with you. You understand? And there's loads of books. One of my great authors that I really enjoy from Australia is Janine Saunders, E to E. So the letter E, number 2, letter E publishing. If you Google that, she's got some fantastic books about boundaries, consent, respect from a young age, about, being quite vocal about your message, about standing up for yourself, but also being quite clear about empathizing. So the person who's not listening needs to understand, respect your feelings. So there's so many other factors that come into it. Do it make sense? It's like layered, and then the top would be actually someone being disrespectful, rather than you're offending me, you're making me feel uncomfortable. Do you know you're making me feel that way? Do I feel comfortable telling you, or are you so cold that you're going to dismiss that? And it's all about what you want me to do for you. Do you make sense?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that sometimes the school have to be really confident and say, we're more worried about this issue, so we're going to spend more time in PSHE or tutor time covering this, because it is a bigger issue with where we live, our area, where our school is situated. But that's going to be quite a big school that can stand up and say, we'll still cover whatever it is, but this is a bigger issue for us. And therefore we'll find more resources, we'll find more books, we'll find more topics that can be covered into that area. So I want to be proactive, but it takes a confident DSL, a confident school, to turn around and go, we're going to do more about this, don't you think?
Yeah, and it's a whole school approach as well. So that's where the surveys come in, the anonymous surveys around, so not the classic, do you feel safe? It's more than that. It's much more than that, because for decades we've had that tick box, haven't we? And that's told us that if we discover this now, that means that tick box meant nothing, because we've just discovered Pandora's box, haven't we, of, oh my gosh, what's been happening or is happening. So I think messages, if we all accept that, unfortunately, the nature is there is going to be, hence there is, being the word being factual is, rather than could be. If we accept that there are scenarios happening in our setting, and if we accept that, unfortunately, young people don't feel comfortable talking about it for lots of reasons. If we look at those blockages, what can we do to create an environment where people have a voice and feel comfortable in expressing how, because if you do it from the self, it's about how we feel uncomfortable. Sometimes you can't, encouraging the young person to talk, but maybe without naming at first, to then get them to feel comfortable to then say it. Because I remember working with a young person many years ago when I was based in the school setting, 22 years ago. And I remember she was talking about her boyfriend, her partner, blah, blah, blah. And she was year 9, I think, at the time. But the point I'm making is, over a period of time, she then gave me the age, who was 21.
Yeah.
And I recognized they started when she was 12. So guess what? It was a referral. But the
Yeah.
point was, it took time.
Yeah.
But in that time came out the beauty of actually her being vulnerable and her understanding the dynamics of this special relationship. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's how it's received. Hence the grooming part is of, you're not going to tell anyone because only you and I understand this.
Yeah. I mean, I think another topic for later is going to be this whole idea that the victim is to blame and how we get rid of that guilt, and how we educate pupils and people that the victim isn't to blame, but also that sometimes the perpetrator is also a victim, and we need to look at how to support both when they're in schools. And I think that's a challenging situation.
So as you say that, Kerry, I know language, you know me, my language. So I know when I'm talking to young people, I talk about the person who's caused you harm or the person who's been accused.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, so please talk about perpetrators, so the sexual violence guidance, I get that. But I know in the kind of model of the early days of starting to get that person to recognize, we have to use very, very common language, you know, common language that is very soft.
Yeah.
So if someone's making you feel uncomfortable, if someone is kind of, you know, encouraging you to do things you don't want to do, or, you know, you're feeling nervous about. So it's just different words, thinking about our SEN, our EAL, think about all the other children who haven't got that voice or don't want to be seen as soft or grasping on their friends, all of that. So by saying that, that's when the kind of the power comes in, when actually I'm protecting myself because someone might understand how I'm feeling. Yeah. And then that's when over a period of time, they will be aware of what they can do to actually put a stop to it, because they want it to stop, most of them. Yeah. They like the person, but they don't like the behavior. Do you understand? And they can't separate the two. Yeah. You know. Okay. So it's, I think it's just about if someone's making you feel uncomfortable, then we're here to support you, to give you a safe space to listen to you and help you with that.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much.
No problem. That's fine.
Bye.